afternoon, good evening, everyone, whatever time you are tuning in. This is a Monday morning mindfulness class. So I designed this to be done at the beginning of the week. Of course, you can do it whenever you feel most comfortable, but my intention was for you to do this at the beginning of your week, maybe on a Sunday, Monday morning, Monday evening, to really set up intentions for the week. To go into the week with intentionality and to really make sure that you get what you need out of your week, as opposed to just letting the week happen to you and all of a sudden it's Thursday and maybe you're exhausted or things just piled up on you. That still may happen, but hopefully we can enter our week a little bit more mindfully and create some systems or put some things in place where we are getting what we need, as opposed to just letting things occur, things happen. So what you want for this class, perhaps a blanket or a towel. I really like this as my prop to sit on or to support my knees. And then you'll want to have a journal or a notebook and something to write with. So we are going to get started in a meditation. So set yourself up in a position that feels comfortable. Maybe it's a comfortable seated position. Maybe just depending on the day that you've had so far, how your body's feeling today. Perhaps instead you're laying on your back, maybe with your knees bent. Maybe you're even laying on your side or on your belly. And you have permission to change your position throughout our meditation. Want the body to feel supported and comfortable so we can really sink into being mindful. So just take a few moments to get yourself set up. If there's any last minute shakes or shimmies that you need in order to feel grounded and set up, take that. And then we'll begin to settle into the body. And let's access that a little bit deeper by coming into this deep breath. Big inhale in. Open mouth release. Let's do that again. Let's take in our whole entire day, our week, our month, perhaps even our year to date so far, and hold that at the top. And on our exhale, let's open the mouth and let it go. Let's take in whatever comes next. So perhaps if you have a busy day ahead, or even just thinking about the week ahead, let's inhale that in. Open the mouth and let that go. Let's take in anything else. Perhaps it's anything that you don't want to bring into the week. Perhaps it's the negativity from last week or different thoughts or stories that will not be helpful. Hold those at the top. Open the mouth and let them go. I invite you to take those big inhales and exhales anytime you need throughout our practice and start to settle. Begin to invite stillness in, even if it feels uncomfortable. You use the breath to just be present with that discomfort. Begin to scan the body. How does the body feel today? How are the feet? How are the toes? The bottom of the feet, the tops of the feet. How are the ankles? How are the shins and the calves feeling? How are the hamstrings and the knees? How are the quadriceps, the front of the thighs, back of the thighs feeling today? How are the hips, the pelvis? How is the low back feeling, maybe the low belly? How is the mid back and the mid belly feeling, maybe even checking in with your digestion? How is the upper back and the chest feeling, maybe even checking in with the breath. How is your respiratory system today? How is the upper back feeling, the shoulders, the neck? How are the arms, the elbows, the forearms? How are the hands and the fingers? And moving back up the body, how is the throat, the face? How is the jaw, the forehead and the eyes, the top of the head? Just checking in. How is the mind today? Sometimes we just move through our day or we jump into our week so fast, and we don't even check in to see how we truly feel physically. And based on how we feel physically, what may we need this week? So maybe you notice parts of the body are particularly tight. Maybe you need some more yoga this week. Maybe parts of the body are feeling exceptionally well, and maybe you need more movement or intensity. So just kind of making note of that. What might the body need this week? And we'll bring some focus and attention now to thinking about how we want to feel. So entering into this week, thinking about how we want to feel at the end of this week, as opposed to what do we have to do. Let's put that aside for a moment. At the end of the week, how do you want to feel? Maybe you want to feel accomplished. Maybe you want to feel that good kind of tired, and you define whatever that means for you. Maybe you don't want to feel tired at all. Maybe you want to feel regenerated and renewed. So don't overthink it. Just see what comes to you. What comes from your gut, what comes from your heart at the end of this week. How do you want to feel? And maybe narrowing it down or really anchoring into 5 feelings, 3 to 5, I would say. So maybe that's refreshed, renewed, maybe productive. Maybe you want to feel like you have served. Maybe you want to feel like you have lived your purpose. So again, not thinking about what we have to do, thinking about how we want to feel. Can you think of some things that would make you feel that way? What would make you feel that way? Maybe that's having some alone time. Maybe it's connecting with a particular friend or family member. Maybe it's completing a task that you've been putting off. What would make you feel that way? And then we'll go one step further with that. What keeps you from feeling that way? What keeps you from feeling that way? Maybe identifying what blocks you from that. Perhaps it's having too busy of a schedule. Maybe it's procrastination. Maybe it's a certain task that you continually dread. What keeps you from feeling that way? What shifts can you make this week to feel that way? Or I guess I should phrase this instead as, what shifts can you make this week? So maybe to invite in those feelings, or to remove those things that keep you from feeling those feelings. What shifts can you make? And these don't have to be big, huge shifts, although they could be. Maybe it's just a small thing. Maybe it's getting up 15 minutes earlier every day. Maybe it's limiting your time on your phone. But is there something small or big that you can do this week to help you feel the way you want to feel? And maybe you begin to connect with the mantra that we'll use in our practice today, or maybe even that you can carry into this week. So with our mantra, we're going to state it positively, as though it's already true, even if it may not be just yet. We're going to state it in the present tense and affirm this for ourselves. So maybe you connect with one of those feelings that you want to feel by the end of the week, or maybe it's a task that you want to complete. So perhaps your mantra is, I am productive. Perhaps your mantra is, I am renewed. And it can change and evolve throughout our class. Or maybe you have a few that you want to play around with and see how they feel. And then let's seal that all in. Big inhale into the lungs through the entire body. Open the mouth, release. And we'll just slowly find a little bit of movement. Begin to open the eyes. And we won't be here too much longer. We'll start to get some gentle movement in pretty soon. But let's grab our journal and let's just jot down what came up during our meditation. So it doesn't need to be in any specific format. There's no question you're answering. There is no worrying about spelling or grammar. What came up for you? And we'll take about 1 more minute here. So maybe just completing the thought that you're at, or you can even add some bullet points. And I always invite you to practice with your journal open next to you and jot down anything that comes up. Sometimes as we start to move and get into the body, different things may come up from the heart or the mind. 30 more seconds. So again, maybe you leave your journal open. We're going to start to get into some gentle movement, and then we'll set some very clear intentions at the end of class. So we'll begin to settle into a seated position. So whatever that looks like for you today, get comfortable with the legs. So maybe it's easy cross-legged, maybe the legs are straightened, maybe you come into half lotus. And we're going to come to this nice tall spine. So maybe we're shifting the hips, perhaps sitting on the edge of our blanket, our towels, spine is long, shoulders are down and relaxed. And let's start to connect to our Ujjayi yogic breath, inhaling in through the nose, exhaling out of the nose, starting to create that soft whisper at the back of the throat. Inhaling in, exhaling out. So we're beginning with this very purposeful breathing, and we'll use this breath to help us connect to our movement, but also to keep us present, to really invite our body, heart, mind, and soul to be present here as we practice. So purposeful breathing, Ujjayi breath, helps keep us present on our mat and keep us from drifting off somewhere else. And maybe even that's your intention or your mantra for this week. Perhaps it's I breathe purposefully. Inhaling in, exhaling out. Let's just take a few more breaths to really establish this connection before we begin to add in more movement. So we're going to stay with that breath, stay with the length in the spine. And our next inhale, we're going to bring our arms up. Inhaling, lifting the arms. And on our exhale, we'll press our palms together and bring them to the heart, pairing movement with breath. Inhale, hands come high. Exhale, hands to the heart. Inhale, hands come high. Exhale, hands to the heart. Inhale, hands come high, and on this exhale, we're going to twist. So we're going to twist to the right, front hand to the knee, back hand supporting us behind our back. Inhale, we find length through the spine. Exhale, we deepen a little bit more into the twist, beginning to wake up that spine. Inhale, we find length. Exhale, we find depth. Let's take a few more rounds of breath here. And on our next inhale, we'll start to lift up to center, and then exhale, we'll switch sides. Coming in now to twisting on the opposite side. Front hand to the knee, back hand supporting us. Inhale, finding length. Exhale, finding depth. On our next inhale, let's bring our arms up to the sky. Exhale, let's fill it all in. We'll release the arms. We're going to take a few more poses here seated, so if you need to, you can always change around the position of the legs. Maybe you straighten them, maybe you switch the cross of the legs if that's become very uncomfortable. Maybe you can bring the soles of the feet together, letting the knees fall out. So we're going to start to move the spine around a little bit more in this butterfly shape. So maybe you adjust the hips so that way the pelvis is tilted a little bit more forward. On our inhale, we're going to spread open the arms, really extending through those fingertips. Heart is lifted. Maybe even gently tilt back the head. Big inhalation. And then on our exhale, we're going to bring the palms together around the back, bring the chin towards the chest. Inhale, opening. Exhale, rounding the spine back. So with your own breath, begin to open and close, really moving the spine, lengthening the breath. Let's take a few rounds here. Inhaling in, exhaling out. And perhaps our intention here is to be mindful about what can we open ourselves up to this week, and maybe what do we need to close off? What do we maybe need to be more open to? Maybe what do we need a little bit less of in our life? Sometimes we can feel really overwhelmed and just bombarded by outside noise. But we also have a responsibility and a choice in the matter about what we allow in, about what we listen to, about what we take in, about who we let in. So just really listen to the body about what it can be more open to and maybe what it needs to protect. Let's take 3 more rounds. After your 3rd round, release the arms. Maybe you shake them out. Maybe gently rolling the head and neck. We'll take a pause here to find the movement that we need. Really checking in with the body. What does it need? And allowing just a few moments to give your body exactly what it needs before we move on to our next pose. Still staying connected to the breath. Inhaling in, exhaling out. And we're going to start to work into our cow face pose, our cow face legs anyways. So we're going to bring the right knee on the bottom. What we're going to attempt to do is stack the left knee on top. Now for some of us today, this may feel really tight in the hips, or maybe just the knees are not wanting to stack today, or that's not accessible. So instead, perhaps we do ankle on top of knee, maybe shin on top of knee. As long as you're feeling it in the hip and the low back, you should feel a gentle stretch there. So find your perfect position for that today. Spine is long, hips are tilted forward, and we're gently getting into the hips here with our cow face legs. Inhaling in, exhaling out. And we're going to add in some upper body with the head and the neck today. So on our next inhale, we're going to bring ear towards the shoulder. Exhale, chin to the chest. Inhale, ear to the opposite shoulder. Exhale, head falls back and heavy. So with your own breath, begin slowly rotating the head and neck around. Inhaling in, exhaling out. So with this movement of the neck, we're starting to open up and become aware of the throat chakra, our energy center in the throat that's associated with our right to speak and be heard, to express ourselves, to effectively communicate. So as we begin to physically open up this energy center in the body, can we also become mindful about where we need to make some shifts for our throat chakra energy this week? Over the next few breaths, maybe check in. Is there more listening perhaps you need to do? To effectively communicate, it's important for us to both speak up but also listen. Is there any area or any relationship that you need to be listening more? Or maybe it's just an area of your life where you need to be more quiet. Let's begin to reverse those heads circles, still staying mindful and checking in. Where can we listen more? Where can we be more quiet? Just a few more rounds, still staying connected with that big inhale in and exhale out. We'll start to find stillness in the head and neck, maybe giving it a few shakes, maybe shakes of the shoulders, shakes of the arms, and we're gently going to switch out the legs. Take your time. And this side may be different. Let's just acknowledge and respect that in the body. So let's find the position that we need on this side. Maybe it's ankle on top of knee, maybe shin on top of knee, maybe it's knee on top of knee. Taking a few moments to find your perfect position on this side. The pelvis is gently tilted forward, spine is nice and long, shoulders are relaxed. Inhaling in, exhaling out. And we're going to continue to check in with the throat chakra here. So the other part of that, not only listening, but also speaking and being heard or expressing ourselves. That doesn't always necessarily need to be vocally. Maybe it's another way we express ourselves. But as we work on the throat chakra physically in this pose, can we be mindful about where we need to express ourselves more? Maybe we need to speak up about a certain issue. Maybe there's something we need to do to express our opinion or make sure that we are heard. Where do you need to speak up? So on our inhale, we're gently going to tilt the head back, exposing the throat. Be very mindful about the back of the neck. Maybe you drop the head back a little further if it's safe to do so. And on our exhale, we'll drop the chin towards the chest, really lengthening the back of the neck. So that's going to be our movement. Inhale, dropping the head back. Exhale, dropping the chin forward. We'll stay here for a few rounds of breath, letting the body tell us where do we need to express ourselves more. Let's take just a few more rounds, continuing to stay connected to that breath. Let's take 3 more. After your last round, find what your body needs. Maybe it's rolling the head and neck, maybe moving the arms. We'll find a release in the legs in just a moment. So let's start now to unwind the legs, and we're going to straighten the legs long in front of us. Maybe before you do that, you drop the knees side to side, or maybe give them a shake or a wiggle, lengthening the legs out long. And we're going to come to our yin caterpillar pose. So this long forward fold. On our exhale, we're going to spill over the legs, letting the belly droop down and be heavy. The belly towards the thighs, nose towards the knees, and forehead towards the shins. Just letting yourself be heavy and long. Letting your hands land wherever they land, maybe on the thighs, the shins, maybe the feet. On our exhale, finding more space in the spine. So with every exhale, we sink in just a little deeper, lengthening the entire body from the hamstrings to the neck. And over the next few breaths, let's check in. How can we nourish ourselves this week? How can we nourish ourselves? So what do you need in order to feel nourished this week? Maybe that means you need to drink more water. Maybe it means you need to take a 10-minute nap each day. So maybe it's small shifts. Maybe it's something big. Maybe you need to schedule a massage. What is it that you need? What can you fit into your week in a big or small way? Let's be mindful and open about that over the next 10 breaths. About halfway through, can you find a little more space? Maybe you sink in just a teeny bit more. Continuing to allow the body to tell you what it needs in order to feel nourished this week. For this last breath here, let's take that big inhale and sigh out. Big inhale in. Open the mouth and sigh it out. Very slowly, we'll start to inch up one vertebrae at a time. Take your time. Roll out those shoulders, roll out the neck, move what needs to be moved, maybe the knees, maybe the toes, maybe the ankles. And we're going to transition onto all fours. Perhaps you pad those knees with your blanket or towel. We're going to stack our knees underneath our hips, the wrists underneath the shoulders, spreading the fingers out nice and wide to help protect the wrists. And we're going to move in and out of our cat and cow to move the spine a little bit more. So on our inhale, dropping the belly and lifting the heart. On our exhale, round the spine and bring the chin towards the chest. Inhale, dipping into that cow pose. Exhale, rounding up to that cat back. So with your own breath, moving in and out of cat and cow. And you can stay right here with traditional cat-cow, or maybe you add on. So perhaps you roll around the neck or the shoulders, still continuing with that movement of the spine, but maybe moving even a little bit more organically. Inhaling in, exhaling out. Let's just take a few more moments here. And for this last breath, let's take that big inhale in. Open mouth, release. We're going to come into our child's pose, so creating more space between the knees. We'll sink those hips back. And then coming into your position of child's pose for today, maybe it's forehead to the mat. Maybe it's forehead to the fists stacked on top of one another. Or maybe you bring those elbows to the mat and rest the chin in the hands. Take a few rounds of breath here just to start to draw in the senses, to really shut out external noise and stimuli, and really just tune into our own breath, quieting the mind even a little more, tuning into what's going on in the body, checking in with the heart, and acknowledging the soul. Let's take a few more rounds of breath here to check in. Again, big inhale in. Open mouth, release. Let's start to extend those arms. We're going to come to downward dog. If maybe that's not a pose that is healthy for you today, perhaps you stay in child's pose or come back to cat-cows. If you're ready for down dog, we'll plant the palms and spread the fingers out nice and wide. We'll start to lift the hips. We'll roll over those toes, beginning to bring the hips up towards the sky, bringing the ears between the biceps. And then just take some time with the legs. Some of us may need to bend the knees more today. Maybe we walk our feet closer or our feet further. And just find whatever movement you may need. So maybe you need to bend a knee and straighten a leg, and then switch. So take your time, just finding some movement. This will be our only down dog of class. So take what you need out of the pose. Inhaling in, exhaling out, maybe even lifting a leg and bending a knee. You can draw circles. We'll be here for about 8 to 10 more breaths. What other movement do you need in the pose? A few more breaths, or maybe you settle into stillness. And for our last breath here, let's take that big inhale in. Open the mouth and let it go. If the knees are lifted, we'll bring them back down. Maybe shake out those wrists. We're going to transition onto our backs. But take your time getting there. If there was something we didn't get to, a pose we didn't do, or just a little bit extra movement that you needed before you come onto your back, take your time to give yourself that. And we'll all meet on the back in about 1 minute. So if you're not on your back already, we'll start to transition onto our back. Begin to reconnect to that breath if you lost it in the transition, and we'll start to bring those knees in. Take a few rocks side to side. Inhaling in, exhaling out. Checking in with the low back and the hips. On our next exhale, let's open up the arms, creating a T-like shape with the arms. And on our exhale, let's drop both knees over to the right. If you can keep both shoulders on the mat. If one comes up or if you need to bend the arm, that's okay. But we're intending here to open up the chest as well as the hips. Inhale, we find length in the spine. Exhale, we deepen into the twist. And just with this openness of the chest space where the heart chakra resides, we just tune in and listen to the heart. What does the heart need this week? Our heart chakra is associated with our right to love and be loved. Is there anything we can shift around this week to show ourselves love more, to accept love more? Maybe there's more compassion or love we need to show someone or something in particular. Maybe there's something that we need to protect the heart from. Maybe there's something we could open the heart up to a little bit more. So for these next few breaths, just be mindful about what the heart is trying to tell us that it needs. Last inhale here. Let's take a big inhale in. Open mouth and sigh it out. We're just going to switch sides. Inhale will come through center. Exhale, we'll drop those knees over to the left. Taking a few moments to settle in. Exhale, the knees drop over. Maybe we open up the arms a little bit more if we found more space in the heart. Continuing to tune in and listen. What does the heart need this week? And sometimes those aren't always easy tasks, but they're really essential to protect ourselves, to nourish ourselves, to really be mindful about our energy. Sometimes what the heart needs is to forgive someone or something. Sometimes what the heart needs is a boundary set or a vulnerable moment. And sometimes we avoid those things because they're not comfortable or easy. But just listen and tune in. If that's truly what the heart needs, perhaps there's some energy we can devote there this week. Let's take a few more rounds of breath. And let's take again that big inhale in. Open mouth and sigh it out. On our inhale, we'll bring those knees back to center. Few rocks side to side. Take your time. Maybe even drawing a circle with the knees in one direction and then the other. And then we'll start to find some stillness on the back, and let's lift those legs up to the sky, modified legs up the wall. And you can stay right here in stillness, or maybe if you need movement, you point and flex the toes. Maybe you gently roll the ankles. And you can always also bring the hands underneath the hips, or underneath the sacrum, the really low back, if you need extra support. Let's take a few moments here, inhaling in and exhaling out. Just really allowing ourselves to be grounded, connected to the earth. And maybe as we're in this grounding pose, feeling all of the earth rise up to support us, we can check in. What do we need this week to feel supported? What do we need this week to feel supported? So maybe that means we need to meditate every day. Maybe we need to add in at least 10 minutes of yoga a day. Maybe that means we need to reach out and ask a trusted friend or family member for help, or to check in on us. So that we need accountability, or we need to vent. What do we need to feel supported? And right here, let's take a big inhale in. Open mouth, release. If those hands are under the hips, let's release them. We'll rebend the knees. Again, a few rocks side to side, maybe drawing circles, maybe moving the knees, getting this last bit of movement for the hips and the hip flexors. Still staying connected to the breath. And we'll come into our version of happy baby, whatever that means for us today. So maybe we start to bring those knees towards the rib cage. Maybe we grab underneath the knees. Maybe we grab the shins, or maybe we grab the outsides of the feet. Whatever is most accessible to us today. And perhaps we gently rock side to side along the spine. And for our last few moments here of Ujjayi, purposeful breathing, inhaling in and exhaling out. And we've got about 5 more breaths here. You can stay exactly where you are. Maybe you bring the soles of the feet together instead. Maybe you straighten one leg and then the other. What last bits of movement do you need here? Just really listening to the body and being intuitive with what it needs. So we'll start to release maybe the knees, the shins, or the feet. We'll bring those knees in one last time. Last final squeeze here before we settle into stillness. Big inhale, squeeze, bringing those knees towards the forehead, forehead to the knees. And we'll release it all, let it go. We're going to start to settle into our final resting pose. If you have a blanket or towel, maybe you roll it up and bring it under the knees, or you place it on top of the hips for some grounding. You can lengthen the legs, or maybe you bend the knees instead. And we're just going to stay still for a few moments. You can close the eyes if it feels safe, or maybe you focus on one point on the ceiling. And just allow the work to stop, the breath work to stop, the movement to stop. Settle in and just be. We'll be here for a few minutes, final resting pose, and the sound of my voice will let you know when we're through. Start to bring some awareness back. Be finding movement by wiggling fingers and toes. And if you haven't already, we'll bend the knees. Start to roll over onto our side, bringing those knees towards the chest. And we'll gently start to press ourselves up to a seated position. Take your time, set yourself up to get comfortable, so we can do our journaling and set some specific intentions for the week. And we'll grab our journal and our notebook. Maybe looking at what you wrote earlier, that whatever came up for you during your meditation. Maybe if you jotted down anything during our movement, or just being a little bit mindful about what came up in our movement. Perhaps what the throat chakra was trying to tell you, or the heart chakra was trying to tell you. And based on those things, now we'll set some specific intentions for the week. So to help us arrive at those, we're going to get into a few questions. And our first question is, how do you want to feel this week? How do you want to feel this week? So maybe you already identified some of those during our meditation, or maybe some other things came up. How do you want to feel this week? Let's take a few moments to journal that out. And our next question is, what needs to happen for you to feel that way? What needs to happen for you to feel that way? Our next question is, what shifts can you make to feel that way? What shifts can you make to feel that way? So again, these can be big shifts. Maybe it's one big shift you're going to make, or maybe it's a couple of small things that you can do. But what shifts can you make to feel that way? Our next question is, what will self-care look like for you this week? What will self-care look like for you? Again, maybe that's a big thing, like maybe you take some time to schedule a massage if you're able to, if that's what it is for you. Or maybe it's a small thing, like you take a 10-minute nap every day. But what does self-care look like for you this week? Our next question is, who can support you? So who can support you in these intentions this week? So maybe it's one trusted friend or family member that you have. Maybe it's yourself, and maybe you're going to put some things in place to support yourself. Or maybe you're going to get vulnerable and reach out and ask someone for support, but who can support you this week? So maybe looking over what you wrote, maybe reflecting on how you want to feel. Now let's start to really get specific about how we're going to do this. So I'd like you to write out 5 commitments or 5 actions you can take to make sure that you feel this way this week. So maybe one of those actions is going to be to reach out to someone and ask for support. Maybe one of those actions is going to be to put something on your schedule, or maybe you're going to actually register for some yoga classes this week. Whatever you've identified that you need to do to feel the way you want to feel, let's write out 5 specific things that you will do this week to make sure you feel the way you want to feel at the end of the week. So with those 5 actions, try to be as specific as possible. So maybe one of your intentions is to do more yoga this week. So instead of writing do more yoga, maybe you get very specific and I'm going to go to this class, or I'm going to schedule 20 minutes of yoga every morning. Whatever it is, be as specific as possible. That really helps us to follow through with our intentions. We'll take about 1 more minute to come up with our very specific, actionable intentions for the week. And now looking at those intentions for the week, I want to encourage you to do something maybe within the next hour. If you're doing this on Monday morning, I like to say do this before noon today. Put some actions in place that are going to make sure these intentions follow through. So even if that's adding it to your planner, adding it to your calendar, putting it in your phone, maybe you are booking those yoga classes, or maybe you're putting in your calendar your 10-minute nap a day. Maybe it's reaching out to someone, sending a quick message, asking for support. Whatever it is, over the next few hours, put some steps, take some action to make sure that these intentions are followed through. I really want to thank you all for joining me. I hope you found this helpful and you can lead into your week with more intentionality or mindfulness. And I hope that you have a beautiful week. With so much love, so much gratitude, namaste.